Welcome to Delta Mail Podcast. Here we listen to stories, talk about people on the planet, insights and experience, science and technology, art and innovation.
Good evening, Excellency Ambassador M. Riaz Hamidullah. I would like to begin by welcoming Your Excellency on behalf of the Delta Mail. My name is Saida Warda Ahmed, and it's an honor to have you here with us today. So our tagline at the Delta Mail is journalism for social change, meaning socioeconomic development and change through various means and tools of journalism. The purpose of this discussion is basically to learn about your expertise and insights that you have attained through serving in different significant positions and foreign missions, and therefore the purpose is to benefit our audience. So before I start, I would like to inform our audience about our guest today. His Excellency Ambassador M. Riaz Hamidullah did graduation and post-graduation in economics, respectively from India and Bangladesh. He stood first in combined merit list in 15 BCS examination and joined Bangladesh Foreign Services 1995 and has been serving a good part of his career in multilateral economic diplomacy. Since 2017, he has been serving as the point man in Bangladesh engagements at the World Economic Forum. Ambassador M. Riaz Hamidullah served as the High Commissioner of Bangladesh to Sri Lanka from August 2016 to July 2020. After that, he took over as the Ambassador Designate of Bangladesh to the Netherlands on 6 July 2020. And I believe that I can speak for all of us when I say that all we want is to take our Bangladesh forward to a brighter future in terms of prosperity in education, skills, learning, innovation, technology, agriculture, and human development. And I think that we have a lot to learn from the Netherlands. Your Excellency, welcome to Delta Mail. To begin with, how are you, sir?
Great.
So,
especially in COVID times.
I'm very sorry to hear that. I hope you feel better very soon. So how has the Netherlands been for you ever since you've got there?
I'm in Netherlands since the summer of 2020. So it's been almost 19 months that I'm there. Soon I get down to Netherlands, I realize that Netherlands is a regulated delta, whereas Bangladesh is a natural delta. So, well, we say that we have two deltaic nations connected by terrific maritime heritage. I see that there are the resilience of people, the innovative core of people, and indomitable entrepreneurship at the people's level. Whether you look at our farmers, whether you look at an ordinary Dutch on the street, those really connect our two peoples very uniquely. As Netherlands is a country with $60,000 per capita GDP, Bangladesh is somewhere around $2,000. But that sort of divergence does not mean that we sit on the two poles. Rather, it's the values and the approach to life of our two peoples that actually bring the Dutch look at Bangladesh in a very positive frame. That's been my take while I've been there and linking with the Dutch.
I see. This is more of a general question. How many countries have you visited overall?
That's very good. I guess somewhere, around 50 plus minutes by now.
Oh wow, that is a big amount. And regarding
but
that,
if you ask me about visit, because most of the times I've popped out of the aircraft or the airports and been to the hotels or meeting rooms and then got out. So in terms of the visit, meaning going around, mingling with people, getting a real sense of the air, sun of that country, or slightly going to the country, that I'm afraid have not been my luck.
I'm sure you have been to more places than a lot of us, and that is most of our dream. I mean, so coming back to my question was like, what do you think are some global problems that we need to address, like immediately, apart from climate change? I mean, that is quite obvious. I mean, what other global issues are very relevant in most countries in the world?
Well, that's a tall order. I mean, every January I look for one global report, which comes from Davos, meaning the World Economic Forum. They have the global risk report coming out every January, right around the time when Davos converges the world leaders from politics, business, society. It's called Global Risk Report. And the Global Risk Report brings out a matrix, two kind of matrices. One is in terms of impact. The other is the set of risks in terms of probability. When I look at the risks coming out of the World Risk Report for the last 5-6 years, a couple of things I think should concern us means Bangladesh as also the world. Inequality. It's not in terms of inequality of income, but inequality
in general,
in terms of digital access, in terms of opportunities, in terms of learning, and so forth. So inequality, I mean, we will be able to address poverty, meaning absolute poverty to some extent by 2030 or around before that. But inequality would keep us going within the countries, among the countries. That's one. Climate change itself is challenging a lot of our development gains. And COVID has accentuated that. So COVID has actually also showed that how one pandemic catch us, every society, every people in villages or towns in terms of unpreparedness. So how do we manage uncertainty? COVID has brought that up starkly. The other, to me, is the gap which is coming out through in terms of learning. And I'm not talking about education. When we look at education, we actually look at a process. We look at the institutional part of learning, meaning our schools to tertiary level universities. I think the much greater crisis is coming in terms of learning, where countries like Bangladesh is going to face it significantly more. Why? Because if the learning is not right, then eventually when you come to workspace, and the whole global workspace is going for change, COVID is making it completely different. The sense of careers, the way we understand this will be gone. I mean, the job streams will be gone as well, thanks to artificial intelligence and machine learning. So in that case, even within Bangladesh, we are seeing the impact of many others that could be there. These few actually, I think, should concern most of us, including in Bangladesh. Mind you, these also concern many in the developed world, including in Netherlands, where we regard them. So whether you are an OECD country, G7 country, or a member of NDC, or a wider middle income, and even in India, these more or less concern sizable majority of people.
Speaking of educational system, do you have any suggestions on how Bangladesh education system, especially universities, benefit from collaboration with Dutch universities?
Dutch universities, if you Google, as against our general perception or unawareness, quite a number of the Dutch universities feature within the first top 100, and also if you expand top 200 universities globally. Now, the Dutch universities follow a very different approach. They do not believe in entering into collaboration MOUs or arrangements with universities outside.
I see.
They only go where they find, after meticulous assessment, understanding, some value addition. So in order for us to create the attraction, to send the message across to any Dutch university that a collaboration would actually be beneficial, mutually beneficial for them primarily, then they would come forward. This has been my clear understanding, having been in conversation with quite a number of universities like Leiden, Erasmus, Amsterdam, or even Wageningen, which is the #1 university in agri-sciences globally. So so we need to really tell them that not tell them. I mean, we need to really, through one or two engagements, whether if it's public lecture or if it's an academic collaboration in terms of academic inquiry, that collaborating with a Bangladeshi given university or institution um, would be beneficial for their academic training, for their research agenda. So this is what my take is, that simply concluding a collaborative MOU may not yield desired response from them.
So speaking of COVID-19 hampering employment rates all over the country, but all over the country and the world, as a matter of fact, the rate of unemployment in Bangladesh is pretty high, standing at about 5.3%. So do you have any suggestions on how youth in Bangladesh can be prepared better for the local and global job market?
I think let's look at 2019, before COVID struck us. Around 2018, there was a report, I think, which is still valid. It's called Future of Jobs report, again, which came from the World Economic Forum, where actually OECD and others looked at. And they looked at countries in Africa, including Bangladesh, countries in the bottom rung of development. There's also the OECD countries. As I said, there's a crisis, emerging crisis of learning. There's also related to learning is the skills in soft skills. I remember one day Jack Ma was telling a group of young students in Davos that, look, when I was recruiting for Alibaba, I used to look for STEM graduates. But today, if you ask me, I'll look for STEAM graduates with A in the middle standing for A for arts. So the whole room, the packed room, young fellows were asking that, why arts? Why aren't you looking for STEM? He said, look, art, A for arts is not arts actually per se. It's art, it's for creativity, it's for imagination. So science and technology and the technological prowess I can tackle, I can mobilize. But imagination I cannot mobilize within a person overnight. It's a process. It has to come over the years. It has to be inculcated, it has to be encouraged, nurtured, and only then, if there's an inner core care, then it comes out. So my point is that when you see every year around 2.2 to 2.5 million Bangladeshi youth are entering the workforce, wage employment wise, you cannot absorb even 1/3 of them, meaning employing them in factories and all that. So we need to create space for a new movement for entrepreneurship, where people can, young fellows can, even like you, can have the environment, have the necessary support structure, facilities, we can do something. So I'd be curious to look at the startup culture and how that the first time entrepreneurs can really try their luck. I think that way, the kind of skill set that we're looking, we are currently focused more on hard skills. How do we bring soft skills? And we cannot start it from university level. It has to be started from high school level. That's related to education and learning. That's why I said it's concept and wider practice, which is has to be much wider. So it's a combination of the work, skills, learning. Together we'll have to look. Not any of the one in isolation, either in terms of policy or in terms of programmatic intervention, either by the government, either by the business. If business keep on complaining, that is not helpful, useful, but all we need to move together. And also at the end of the day, in society, you and I, we also need to appreciate. I need to appreciate as a parent, and you need to appreciate, let's say, as my daughter, that, you have to do that. Otherwise, if we don't find it comfortable, we find it too challenging, then it will not work and trick. Then you suffer, I also feel sad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we frequently use the term ambassador for a country or issue metaphorically, but you are a real life ambassador of Bangladesh and to the Netherlands and previously for Sri Lanka. Do you feel any obligations as an ambassador?
Obligations as in what?
Any obligations to the country or?
Well, I think the right word would be responsibility.
I see.
Meaning ambassador is the flag bearer of the country. Ambassador is the representative on behalf of the president vested by the president of the republic.
Yes.
So it calls for a reasonable degree or a very high degree of maturity, wisdom, and expertise to be employed, as also exceptional degree of friendship and values that Bangladesh champions to be demonstrated in the country where I remain posted. Because many people ask me that how do you define Bangladesh? I said, look, Bangladesh should not be looked at a country manufacturing shirt to ship. We got liberated for standing up for values. We look at 1952, 1971. Because the values of ours and the values of Pakistan, Islamabad were so different, starkly opposed. So that's when the whole people stood up. And our constitution speaks up that eminently. Now, the question is that it's an evergreen journey. It's not to be looked at that we are right now at $2,000 per capita. We'll sometime reach $10,000, $20,000, and even further. Issues of how, as a nation, as a responsible and responsive people, we uphold and take our values to the global level to earn respect from other people. I think that's how when any nation, for that matter, in history, has been able to make their rightful place in history across times. So I see, and that's when, frankly, I keep reminding myself that whatever I do, wherever I be, whether it was in Sri Lanka, Nepal, now in Netherlands, that in every single undertaking, how do I sort of demonstrate this to the local people, meaning the Dutch or in earlier times Sri Lankan.
So, Your Excellency has led me to ask you this following very broad question. That is, we know that Netherlands is a developed country, but apart from that, what social and development differences are there between Netherlands and Bangladesh, and how can Bangladesh benefit from the Netherlands, and what are the opportunities for Bangladesh?
I had a very interesting discovery. Soon after I land there, one day I make it to the Rijksmuseum, which is basically their national museum, very world famous. And the curator, while she was taking me around the Rijksmuseum's huge halls, shares something very striking. She says that between 1600 to 1680, meaning 80 years, millions of artworks were produced in the Netherlands. So I stopped by and looked at her. And she said, is it sure? I said, yes. And she also said in the same breath, these were sold, these were traded. Can you imagine? Meaning at that time, the Dutch had wealth.
Yes.
And not only wealth, but the wealth were also invested or used in arts. This is striking. We're talking of, let's say, hundreds of years, 300, 400 years back. Why I say this? Because I'd say that, here is a nation, here's a people, which is 1/10 of ours. We are 170 million, they're 17 million. They understood their natural limits, constraints in endowments, the calamities that they had, and as a result, they defined where and how they should position themselves in scaling up their capabilities. So the Netherlands and the Dutch people are significantly employed in very high value agriculture. Dynamically, they've used water more as a wealth, and also they've brought in complete different set of economic advantages to in their favor. And the Dutch are in love with their art and culture. Not only their art and culture, but also they appreciate and they reach out to other people for their art and culture. So whenever I share something of Bangladesh, whether it's a food, culinary, nakshikatha, meaning embroidered quilts, or our own painting, I see that they engage or they sit down with considerable interest and with an open mind. I think it's very important to understand any people for that matter. I think
Absolutely.
any conversation, as long as it's sort of both ways, it's gainful for both people.
Absolutely.
That's how I look at it. Yeah.
So Bangladesh and the Netherlands, they have had a bilateral relationship since before Bangladesh's independence. But could you tell me about the current condition or the status of Bangladesh-Netherlands cooperation right now?
Netherlands has been engaged in our part of the world since 1960s in terms of polder development or the waterworks.
Yes.
In the past 5 decades, this year actually we're celebrating 50 years of a diplomatic relations. So when I look at the 5 decades, it initially was marked by development cooperation. Today it's shifting to economic cooperation because Bangladesh private sector has come up significantly and they are competitive, they are agile, and there is a respect and recognition on the Dutch side. The Dutch side also want to engage in Bangladesh, particularly their business industry in Bangladesh, whether it's manufacturing or service sector, on economic principles, on business models. So there are interesting sectors coming up. Initially, as I said, we thought of Netherlands essentially engaging in our river works, meaning bridge building, vessel building, or let's say polder construction, etc. Increasingly, it's or dredging. Increasingly, it's also going into agriculture, the vast areas of agriculture. And when I'm looking at agriculture, it's about horticulture, fisheries, livestock, and so forth. So it's very interesting, and they're everywhere. They say that wherever Bangladesh thinks they have their challenges, they say that for every possible challenge, there are opportunities, there are possible solutions.
Yes.
So if you're talking about salinity in deep south of Bangladesh, Patuakhali, Bodishal area, Khulna, they have all wonderful solutions which actually are affordable, and they want to employ those, bringing new business models. So I see a huge, very wide, spectrum across where they can come in. I'm not talking of even more vertical areas like finance, innovative finance. That also can come. So plowing the technologies, plowing innovative capital finance, all put together, the expense is pretty wide.
So I have a follow-up question regarding that. Like, what types of cooperation among Bangladesh and the Netherlands do you find the most beneficial for us?
I said I would increasingly look at agriculture, but I also look at across our digitization landscape. And please understand that digitization doesn't mean looking at it through a narrow lens of ICT industry. It can be digitization of agriculture. It can be digitization of our garment factories, or maybe leather industry, or any processes that procurement processes, or somewhere in the supply chain, or maybe smart city development. Across the entire spectrum of our economic activities, different subsectors of economy, we can bring in the Dutch innovators, thousands of them who, at the family level, individual level, who have the technology, to bring them, negotiate with them, contextualize them, adapt to our social, economic, or ecological circumstances. I would not specify, therefore, any particular area. I said agriculture would feature very prominently, much higher, perhaps at the top. But there are so many sectors.
Speaking of agriculture, what are some agricultural initiatives that Bangladesh can take with Netherlands' assistance?
I think initiative is not the word. Let me give you an instance. One day, a gentleman walked up to me and said that, look, I know that in Patuakhali area, for almost 7 months of the year, but minus the monsoon period of, let's say, 5 months, plus minus 7 months of the year, the intrusion of saline water inland from the sea is a huge problem. As a result, the artisanal fishermen suffer, marginal farmers suffer, the livestock cattle grazers are suffering, and end of the day, when the salinity picks up, let's say around January or November, then every household is suffering to collect their water because your underground water table have gone saline significantly, and as a result, what to do? He said, we have technologies where we can trap rainwater in the aquifer in air bubble. It took me a little while, understood, And he said that don't think it's unaffordable. We can make it such that the technology will be blended with revenue model in a way that it will be affordable for a low-income person as well, maybe a small farmer and his family. And right now they're testing. If you go to straight up north in Cholonbit, where our water table is falling alarmingly, that's where they have more intensive, water intensive technologies. I tell you one thing, the Jordan ambassador in Netherlands was telling me, look, if they have the technologies whereas it takes 96 liters of water to produce 1 kg tomato, it takes just in Jordan, it takes just 6 liters of water to produce 1 kg of tomato in Netherlands. 6 liters versus 96 liters. So in water stressed area, like in a Rajshahi division or Rangpur division of ours, where increasingly it will go dry, arid, and then you'll find, so it's simply not drip irrigation, it is this kind of solutions, technologies, innovations which can turn the magic around.
Absolutely. So I would like to compare Bangladesh with Singapore back in the days for a bit. I mean, Singapore have developed their entire infrastructure and economic development through foreign expertise. And why do you think Bangladesh is not able to achieve that, even though it has full cooperation from the Netherlands and the Dutch people?
Are you referring to Singapore or Netherlands?
Singapore. Like, I'm comparing Bangladesh to Singapore. Like, why do you think Singapore could achieve that full level of infrastructure development through foreign expertise, but Bangladesh is not able to do it?
Well, that will take quite a bit of time, but few things, if I may make a rapid attempt with. One is definitely learning. Learning is from school level, even from pre-primary level, where they're focused, no compromise.
Absolutely.
I think the other is to get inequality or equality right, addressing inequality from the very beginning. Because while your per capita income goes up, if a country or nation is unable to keep the inequality gap right, then discontent will brew up. And then as high as your per capita income be, the development will not be with. To me, these two have been important. As also, you see, Singapore hardly has any natural advantage. They have to import their fresh water from across the border from Malaysia. They are reclaiming their lands. In spite of this kind of natural limits, they have been very strict about governance, about implementing their laws, regulations, etc. And in a very transparent manner, they have encouraged innovation significantly across any level, any sector. All these combined have brought up such an ecosystem ecosystem of systems where it has moved in tandem. And there's been appreciation of government, business, civil society. All constituents have actually looked at each other eye to eye in full trust and confidence. It's that kind of compact which, to my mind, has made Singapore what it is today.
I see. So, with all that being said, here's the concluding question that I would like to ask you. What is your vision for the future of international cooperation between Bangladesh and the Netherlands, and how do you think Bangladesh can take the help from the Netherlands to achieve sustainable development goals by the end of 2030?
You said about cooperation. I would put it cooperation as also collaboration, or collaboration increasingly coming up. My aspiration is to get the whole landscape of Dutch knowledge, technology, and innovation across sectors open up to Bangladeshis, and for us to be able to tap those, or entrepreneurs primarily, in mutually gainful manner, on beneficial terms. Let there be negotiated as well, because those will help us, help our entrepreneurs, enterprises, startups, whosoever you talk about, to move to the next level. Whether you look at the domestic economy, meaning Bangladeshi economy, Bangladeshi markets, or also if you have to go into the global markets, global supply chains. So my job is to facilitate, encourage anyone who I feel worthy, who I feel should be of potential interest to Bangladesh, to go down or come down to Bangladesh, and then to link up with credible, responsible, and transparent companies or entrepreneurs on Bangladeshi side. And that's what I've been trying to do over the past 1.5 years in spite of COVID limits.
So the concluding question would be, sir, how do you like to see Bangladesh in 5-10 years? Where do you think Bangladesh will be in about 5-10 years?
Again, a very tall order. Before that, let me share with you that in December 2020, we launched a scoping study where we mapped the economic engagements or collaboration between our two countries. And I would encourage you sometime to share that with people with infographics page. But coming to your question, I think Bangladesh, as much as we've remained focused on our economic development, increasing our expense of our national economy, going to $1 trillion to start with. Obviously, we'd like to see our per capita GDP go up, but I am frankly not driven by numbers. I think it is important to champion some of the values that we believe in, that we believed in 1971, and
absolutely.
to work up with those values in the global stage, and to say that we need to be looked at in terms of not material wealth or possessions, but in terms of the values that we inculcate, not only for our betterment, but also for the well-being of all people anywhere. This is frankly my own personal, so to say, vision, or something that I'd like to see Bangladesh come up with in 10, 20, 30 years and beyond.
It's safe to say that we can all vouch for that. Thank you very much, sir. That was all from the questions side. I would like to take this time to present my utmost gratitude towards you for all your services that you have provided for the country, and definitely for letting us have this time and sharing your knowledge with us, sir.
Thank you. Great pleasure.
Thank you.
With the terms.
Thank you very much, sir.
The Delta Mail Podcast.